Yo, what's up guys? We got pokeaim here. Today we have a video on the Venusaur Banned in Pokemon Sword and Shield in the UU tier. Now before we get into this video, leave a like if you know where that sun is from, and leave a comment if you know where it's from, but only give me the wrong answers. And if you don't know, middle school lunches will be served at 12, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so Venusaur has been banned from the Pokemon Sword and Shield UU tier. Now this is interesting because originally they were talking about suspecting either Drought or Torkoal and Ninetales. I actually believe it was just Torkoal and Ninetales, and the reason being is that Sun is actually very powerful in the UU tier. Sun is also very cookie cutter in my opinion. It's your Sun Setter, your Venusaur, which growths in the sun. You got your Darmanitan, usually Scarf or Boots. You have a Gardevoir, which is also Scarf. Because Gardevoir gives you opposing Sun answers because it traces Chlorophyll from Venusaur and lets you check them. Then you have like a Rhyperior, which is your rocker, especially if you use Ninetales, or it's just a nice little check to Noivern. If you're using Torkoal as well as your rock, it doesn't matter. And then from there, it kind of like, it doesn't matter what your last is, it can be some oddball out. I use Noivern because it checks Golisopod, which is, you know, first impression can do a number to Venusaur. So that's like cookie cutter Sun. Now, initially they were testing both Torkoal and Ninetales, but I believe there was just some commotion in the thread that, oh, you can't, they're not necessarily busted or whatever that. I know Evie did some stuff. You can actually go, but there's a long thing, and I really don't want to go through everything. Though I do believe the conversation was very, was at least will at least be worth checking out. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll link it down below. But the reason they couldn't suspect Drought itself is because in order to suspect something like Drought and ban it, you have to prove that Drought's broken. And how do you do that? Well, obviously Torkoal and Sun have the Sun, or Torkoal and Sun, I'm not Blunderman, I know their Pokemon names. Torkoal and Ninetales both set up the Sun, right? But, and Sun teams are very good, but that doesn't prove Drought is broken, because in order to do that, you have to prove that Ninetales' baby, Vulpix, is also busted with Sun. Because if they ban Torkoal and, or if they ban Drought on Torkoal and Ninetales, that would mean that without a doubt that Sun could also work with Vulpix, because you have to prove that the thing is broken in order to do that, and that wasn't necessarily done. I actually laddered with Vulpix, and I know a few other members did as well, and I also found it, you know, it's still kind of fine. It's like it's a little bit worse than manual Sun, or it's around the same as manual Sun. I'd say it's a little bit better though, because you lead off of Vulpix, you get off your 7 turns when you switch, right, and you bring it in later to sack and get another. But it's definitely different than having a Torkoal, which can actually provide rapid spin support and stealth rock and yawn throughout the entire game, or Ninetales, which has a faster Will-O-Wisp or a faster Fire Blast or even more special attack in general. But yeah, so they decided against that. They decided to open up Drought itself in one of the PR threads, and also just talking about Torkoal and Ninetales. And then after that, they actually decided to have a council vote on Venusaur itself. So Venusaur was determined to be the single biggest Sun threat due to its combination of above average bulk, decent defensive typing, ease of boosting, and the power of effectively having triple stab with Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, and Weather Ball in the Sun. While concerns still exist that Sun will remain unhealthy presence even without Venusaur, this was the most direct way to move forward with the Sun issue without bypassing our policy requirements. If you'd like to continue discussion regarding banning Drought, please direct it to the current policy discussion on Drought. So we'll put that right there. Now I'm just gonna, yeah, fine. I'll read this. For anyone who has been following the discussion in UU, Drought teams have become a serious issue in the tier. It has been completely taken over the ladder and tournament games with UULT, the UU ladder tour coming up next week, as our next big circuit tour. It's a real concern. It's been a growing issue for a long time, but a few recent changes have really pushed it to the top. Mamoswine's ban was a huge boom for Sun teams, removing their single biggest offensive threat, and Torkoal and Darmanitan dropping in the last tier shift gave it a couple of new toys or tools. There have also been some new sets that evolved recently to take full advantage, like Solar Beam Noivern, which is great for Rhyperior. It's actually a point where most players in the UU Premier League have been making no Sun agreements before playing, and for those who didn't make one, it's some ridiculous like 75% win rate. Just look at the most recent UUPL game where Sky Solo clinched the week for his team by literally using a sample team. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I saw that game, but either way, as far as the ladder goes, Torkoal just dropped to UU this month and already sitting up at close to 12% usage from the first half of the month. Ninetales usage has been climbing steadily as well. If you guys didn't know, Ninetales is actually RU, but I would say there's like an 80 to, I mean, it's literally climbing up. He says it right here. So to see it rise in May or June, I think it's a good chance that Ninetales will definitely rise up. But there's also really no individual mon you can point to as things that put Sun over the edge. Other than Sun itself, Venusaur is probably the most common element on these teams since it's significantly better than the other chlorophyll sweepers like Vileplume or Shiftry. And the big thing with Shiftry is like Shiftry has good stab. Obviously, grass and dark are great. When you couple that with fire, it's really good coverage. But Shiftry doesn't have the natural bulk that Venusaur has to be able to set up a growth easier. But there's also several others with similar wall breaking, so potentially if they lack its bulk. Darmanitan is the newest drop, and it's absolute monster when Sun is up. Many Sun teams opt to use other breakers in its place, so it clearly isn't the problem on its own. Before Gen 8 came out, we made some clarifications regarding what a particular tier's console can do and can't. One of the specific things that was clarified is that while suspecting or voting on individual Pokemon can be done without oversight, complex bans, which includes ability bans, requires a policy discussion. We discussed potentially banning Torkoal and Ninetales as an immediate way to deal with the issue, and in fact, the council unanimously voted to do so, but we decided to hold off and move it to policy discussion. And I think part of the reason was that because, yes, if Torkoal and Ninetales were banned, obviously it would make Sun less good because you have two less setters, but if Vulpix came up as an issue, right, during that time, and Vulpix obviously still having Drought, and again, I was one of the people who tested it. I'm not on the council anymore, but I was one of the people who tested it. What's it called? Then Sun would still be its problem. But yeah. But we just decided to hold off and move to policy discussion. This hasn't just been a problem in UU either. One of RU's very first bans was Shiftry due to how overwhelming Sun teams were in early RU. And PU similarly has major issues with Sun right now. PU actually had some really weird, like, interesting bans recently. They banned, like, they not only banned Drought, but they banned Drought and Heat Rock as well. So, like, I think it's because, what is it, Liepard and Onyx were very good or good enough as Sun setters in the tier, so that's interesting to me. But, yeah, they opened up this policy discussion in terms of Drought, and, again, this is another thread if you guys want to read through it. But one of the big things was that, you know, Venusaur inevitably got banned. Now, do I think that this will cool Sun down? Maybe a little bit. I still think Darm is nasty under Sun, but obviously... this means you're not required to run Gardevoir as your anti-Sunmon on a lot of teams. I think Gardevoir picked up a ton of usage in my opinion. It was already like top 10 in usage last month, so it got even better with Sun itself. I do think that Darm is still crazy under Sun, but a lot of people like to run Boots or Scarf, so it does have the power of Choice Band under Sun, which is nice. I love to run Choice Band under Sun because I love the overkill of it particularly. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this will actually help solve the Sun issue? Do you think that Venusaur wasn't the most restricted? Do you think that UU itself has other restricted Pokemon as well? Because one thing that I think that is a huge threat in the UU tier was the Haxorus. I think Haxorus is phenomenal right now in the UU tier, especially with Mammal. And a lot of this has to do with Mamoswine, you know, being banned from UU. Haxorus is definitely a giant threat. They also welcomed... This is like a news video now. Like, I mean, these are news videos, but I feel like I'm talking like that. They also welcomed Tony Flagon and CBU to the UU Council because Pack and Sage stepped down. I want to see what Ozma had to say. I was not expecting a quick ban to say the least, but I think this is the ban for the meantime. It's a great first step to figuring out the problem with Sun and UU. Regarding a bit more about what I was feeling regarding this, I generally feel like Drought itself made the problem after playing some more. We know that the setters are not broken by any stretch of the word, neither are the abusers by their base. I addressed this some of the posts above. However, making it so we can get rid of the auto set of Sun not only opens abusing Pokemon back up in terms of fairness, but also makes it so the playstyle itself isn't stricken away, making it require more finesse and isn't as easy as a double. For now, we can definitely expect for people to try and fill the void of Venusaur of other abusers like Vileplume and Shiftry that come to mind. Only time will tell if this is a different problem. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, Venusaur itself isn't a problem outside of Sun, right? Like, I mean, no, it would have kept falling down. Maybe RU at like worse, I would say. I don't think Venusaur would be NU. I think it'd be RU at worst. Because it's a good fighting check, has Leech Seed, Sleep Powder, things like that. RU does have Rose Raid as well, but this is like is a bulkier version, at least on the physically defensive side of Roserade, I would say. Whereas Roserade would be like the more offensive version of this, which has like the exact same movesets except for T-Spikes is a big thing on top of that, but they both have Weather Ball too. And, you know, Chlorophyll, so maybe like Manual Sun would have been used down there. Or, I do believe though, if Ninetales stayed down there and then Venusaur went, obviously, you know, they'd use that type of Sun, but I don't think Ninetales is staying up in that regard. But, yeah, what do you guys think? I don't believe that Venusaur is broken in itself, and, oh crap. Blunder's ready to record. Damn, I had a little bit more to say. I don't believe that Venusaur was broken in itself, but obviously with Sun it does push it over the edge. I kind of see this as like a blanket check for what's going on in the tier. You know, like, oh, okay, let's put a band-aid on this and let's see if this is actually a thing, because this is, you know, this is affecting our tournaments. I don't know how I feel about that. I personally think that just banning Drought as a whole would have been fine, and then like if the members of the council would have just tested Vulpix itself as well to undoubtedly say, oh, Drought is the problem, because, you know, the issue for Venusaur being so good is because Sun is up all the time. Not all the time. It's not Gen 5, Gen 4. But Sun is up, right? Sun is up, so Venusaur is able to do its thing. If it's manual Sun, it's different because you have to waste a turn doing that. Your manual Sun user has to do that, then they have to get on out of there. It's different when it's Torkoal and that. So I do feel like it's still leaning towards, like, I think it was Drought itself, because Drought is what made Venusaur and, you know, Darmanitan nasty to deal with. But it's also really hard to say because I also disagreed with, you know, outright banning Torkoal and Ninetales too, because I don't think they were the issue in itself. I think there was their abilities, and they could have obviously, you know, they'd be dropped down to PU, but they could survive without their abilities. So I don't know. I want to know your thoughts on that. Do you guys believe that it was Venusaur that was the main issue? Do you think that this is just like a little band-aid in it and then they're going to go forward with things? Do you think this will help out with Sun? I obviously think that the immediate effect is that, yes, this will help out with, you know, Sun not being as busted in the tier. But let me know your thoughts. You can leave them down below. I'll see you guys next time later today with Showdown Live. So, yeah, goodbye, my friends.